My name is Christian Rakos. I am manager of the Austrian Pellet Industry Association and also president of the World Bioenergy Association. The mission of the World Bioenergy Association is to promote the sustainable use of bioenergy. Our mission is to promote the sustainable use of bioenergy. And that includes two aspects. One aspect is to establish an equilibrium between what is growing as biomass and what we are using on the one side. And the other aspect is to use modern technology that is as efficient as possible and as clean as possible. If both conditions are granted, then we are speaking of sustainable bioenergy use. Our vision is to establish bioenergy as one important pillar of a carbon neutral energy supply of humanity by the mid of this century. We know that it is necessary to decarbonize energy supply in general. We know there is a great urgency to decarbonize energy, and we know that bioenergy can play a relevant role. In fact, we believe that bioenergy will be the largest single source of energy by 2050. What is the role of the private sector for bioenergy development? Well, the private sector actually makes bioenergy happen. The private sector develops the technology. The private sector establishes the skilled workforce that is necessary to use it. And the private sector establishes the supply chains from bioenergy production all the way to bioenergy use that are necessary to keep up this system working. What is the role of the public hand, of the state, of the government? The government creates the economic and the regulatory frame conditions that allow bioenergy to work. If the public hand is subsidizing fossil fuels, it is impossible for bioenergy to really develop successfully. So the public sector is needed in the same way as the private sector is needed. If we look at the global picture, where is bioenergy being used successfully? And what we find is, firstly, it is used successfully where there are abundant resources, but that is not enough. It is a condition that is in fact true for many places. Most of the places people live in have an abundance of biomass in its various forms. The second condition is that in these countries where we see successful development of bioenergy, there is a close collaboration between the public hand that establishes the right conditions and the private sector that uses these conditions to develop bioenergy use in a successful way. And that can be in different countries. In Europe, for example, it is the Scandinavian countries that are very successful. In Central Europe, Austria is one of the countries with the highest use of bioenergy. But it could also be in countries of the global south, such as Brazil, or other countries where bioenergy is quite extensively used. In my home country, Austria, renewable energy is supplying about somewhat a third of all the energy that we use. So quite a significant amount compared to other countries. And 60% of this renewable energy is coming from biomass. Why did that happen? There was a close collaboration between the public hand and the private sector in research and development. We had research programs over a period of 40 years to develop better and better ways of using bioenergy, mainly focusing on combustion, later on also on gasification of biomass as a way to use it efficiently and cleanly. Second thing, public support, subsidies for the investment in modern technology. This was necessary both for the private use of bioenergy, so we've got subsidies for modern biomass boilers for households, but also for more public type of investment, such as in district heating systems that are using biomass as a fuel, and that are used very extensively in Austria. 2,500 villages actually consume most of their heat from a district heating system that is fired with biomass, with wood chips usually, or with other wood residues. Finally, the public hand in Austria has also established a carbon tax, most recently actually. In the past, it was mainly the subsidies. Now it is going to be more and more the taxes on fossil fuels that will increase the competitivity of biomass. And there will also be regulatory measures, such as a forced phasing out of fossil fuels in the heating system. We have a clearly defined target that by 2035, fuel oil will not be used anymore, will not be allowed to use anymore for heating. So that creates, of course, a huge opportunity for bioenergy and a huge opportunity for climate protection. The main strength of bioenergy is that it is available locally, that it is in most cases a local resource that can be used, that does not need to be transported over long distances, is always available basically, with some variations of course. That there are very efficient technologies of using it, not like in the past, very primitive ones that created a lot of pollution. We can't have that anymore, but cleanliness and efficiency is really important. And that it is an economic solution. In fact, bioenergy, particularly for heating purposes, not always for electricity generation, but for heating purposes, is an economic solution, with levelized costs being actually lower than the levelized costs of fossil fuels in most cases. So that is a true strength. It should also be mentioned that the stability of prices, the stability of costs of bioenergy is substantially higher than the stability of prices of fossil fuels. We have seen in the past that fossil fuels can go up and down very steeply, creating very difficult conditions for the entire economy. That is not the case if you have a local supply of energy, and bioenergy is a local supply of energy that is not related to speculation, to global political games that are being played all the time, or even to wars that can disrupt supply chains. The main challenge of bioenergy are the high upfront investment costs. If you want to use bioenergy with modern technology, there is a barrier in the upfront investment. If that barrier can be broken and the state, the government can play an important role in that context, then it is going to take off, and it's going to really be there to stay and to deliver a solid and economic service to society. Energy is something that is fundamental to our society. And whatever form of energy is we talk about, there are two conditions that are really important to be met. And one is that there is a supply security because of the importance to our society. And there is a consistency in terms of quality, whether it is a consistent voltage in the electric system or a consistent composition of gasoline or natural gas, it's always the same story. We need to have it for sure, and we need to have it in a clearly defined quality. And in that context, biomass trade centers can play a critical role. On the one side, because they can make sure that biomass is available at all times, and in the other side, that it is available in clearly defined qualities in terms of humidity, in terms of size of the chips, for example, in terms of calorific value, in terms of quality of pellets. There are all kinds of qualities that need to be taken care of. Make sure that it is not contaminated with whatever contaminations are there. Could be rocks, could be big pieces of wood that would kind of stop heating systems from operating. So the quality is important, the supply is important. In both cases, bioenergy trade centers can play an important role. If we want to see a significantly increased bioenergy use, and that will be necessary if we want to decarbonize our energy supply, then we need to establish robust supply chains. And biomass trade centers are an important contribution to establish such a robust supply chain that is always delivering the type of energy and the quality of energy you need.